Okay, welcome everybody to our first in-person meeting in quite a while. We do have two board members that are visiting by remote on a Zoom call. So I'm going to ask everybody to stand and say the pledge.
Pledge allegiance
I
to the
pledge
flag
allegiance to the
of the
flag
United States of America,
of the United States of America
to the
and
republic
to the
for which
republic
it stands,
for which it stands,
one nation,
one
under
nation,
God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty
indivisible,
and
with
justice for
liberty
all.
and justice for all.
Welcome everybody. We have Jessica LeNave and Chuck Milkey with us via Zoom. I am going to begin by offering folks an opportunity for public comment. Do we have any public comments at this time? No? Okay, we do not have public comment at this time. So moving forward, we do have before us a consent agenda. I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Mike and Alicia. You have to mute it. Any comments or questions? Joanne, can you do roll call because we have two people on remote?
Jessica?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Alicia? Yes. And Carrie?
Yes.
7
Oh,
yeses.
okay, motion passes. Now we have our superintendent report. Ben?
Thank you. It's great to see everybody back, and I will say that I'm very happy to see all of you. This has been a recent development as the state has relaxed some of its restrictions on gatherings for a long time. Even at our last meeting, groups were prohibited from meeting. And so I'm going to share just a little bit about that. Before I get into my report, I think it's worth just noting our student representative here on the board, Brennan Johnson. This past week we found out and learned that he is one of 22 applicants out of 27,000 auditions to be accepted into the University of Michigan Ann Arbor School of Musical Theater. And that is extremely competitive, and I just wanted to make sure we issued a congratulations to Brendan.
Thank you.
I know he's going to do amazing things as he has already here.
Thank you. Congratulations, Brendan.
I'd like to give just an update on some of the legislative happenings. There's been a lot going on. Most of you are probably aware that the guidelines have changed on COVID-19 gatherings, and the health department orders as it relates to gathering limits have increased to 25 from 10. Those 25 people that are gathering are related to indoor gatherings only, and outdoor limits can get up to 300. There are some additional limits that have become allowable for venues that are theaters, sports performance arenas, and things like that. We're trying to get a little bit of a further guidance as we prepare for our upcoming plays and a lot of the performances that I know Brendan's going to be a part of with the Newsies, and trying to make sure that we understand how many people can attend and be a part of that. Obviously, we're also very concerned about this because we're talking right now about prom, we're talking about graduation, and trying to make sure that students have some semblance of these rites of passage that I know last year students, we did the best we could, but they didn't quite get the full experience. So those capacity limits are things that are very helpful. I'm excited to see those moving in the right direction, and we're going to keep an eye on that. One of the other things that has been going on, the federal government passed ESSER 2, which is a very large federal funding bill. It's going to release a couple $1 million to local district here and many millions of dollars across the state. This bill, House Bill 4049, would have allowed for the full allocation to be allocated. Unfortunately, right now, the governor has line item vetoed a portion of that package that was passed through the legislature. The first part of the package allows for 40% of the money to be allocated, but one of the stipulations in House Bill 4049 tie-barred the governor's ability to close schools and turn that over to local health departments. So basically, the legislation said all of this money can go out, but part of that is that the governor does not have the ability to close down schools and have these other pieces. The governor did line item veto that, which means that approximately $840 million of this ESSER II money will have to wait and come in another supplemental package. So there'll be another round of funding. We're told we're going to get all of the money, but it's going to have to be worked through the political process at this time. So there's a lot of happenings there politically, and obviously we're hopeful that some of those dollars can flow back to local school districts. We've also been working as a team, as a board team, on our policies, going through the change from Neola policy to Troon. That's obviously been quite an undertaking, and I appreciate all of the board members who have put in a lot of time reading those policies, looking through those policies. And our hope and goal is that by the May board meeting, we will have something that we can bring for approval, and as those are being deliberated now. We are also steeped in planning for next year. I'm going to talk about a few of those things in an upcoming board discussion. And we're already thinking about what does school look like. I did send out an email to all of the families in the district this past week. I forwarded that email to you as a board, and just to provide a little bit of insight as to what things might look like in the fall. I think a lot of people are questioning, are we going to be in masks? Are we going to have quarantines? Are we going to have all of the same safety protocols? And so I tried to address that, and I know it's a lengthy email, but a lot of questions hopefully were answered for some of our families in there. We do get a lot of those questions throughout the week, and we address those. But the bottom line is we don't fully know. There's not a magic 8-ball that will tell us exactly what's going to happen. So, but I do think we have a much more educated idea of what's going to happen compared to what we did going into all of this. One last thing I would like to do, and I'll pass these around. I had the opportunity to meet two people from Grand Blanc, and they've started a process that I think has got the opportunity to be very impactful. And it's called a Sharing Smiles Journal. And basically, what this is it's an opportunity. You're each going to get one, and as a board member. And the idea is that you're going to own this journal, but you're going to start by writing some of the information that you'd like to do. And the idea is that you would do something that would make someone smile, that you would do something that would be an act of kindness. And essentially, the person that you do this act of kindness for will get the journal, and then they will catalog their journey to doing kind things for other people. The goal at the end is that this journal would return back to you so that you would have something to show how your kind act moved throughout the community, could have gone even out of the country, could have come back. And so I'm excited about how this goes and seeing how it goes and the stories that could be generated. But I'd like to start with us as a board team and potentially talk about it in a future meeting, because I think this might be something that would be very positive to go along with our positivity project and a lot of the things we're doing with our students to talk about kindness and what it means to share kindness with others. So I'm going to give each of you one of these so that you can start your smile journal, and then I just would like to maybe have a little report and update at a future meeting on how it went for you. That is my report.
Thank you, Ben. And that is really a cool idea. Very cool. Brendan, I want to congratulate you again. I know how competitive that program is, and you will represent Swartz Creek very well. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, speaking of Brendan,
Alrighty.
it's our opportunity for your student board report.
Yes, ma'am. So first up, I wanted to list some of the things that are kind of going on within the community. Siring Elementary asks that students save Coke caps and send them to school or come to school with them. Each Coke cap has a code on the inside of the bottle top that can be used to be turned in and for a chance to win money, and the school is using this as a fundraiser. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your student's teacher or a Siring office representative for more info. Gaines Elementary is holding a Scholastic Book Fair from March 15th to March 19th. Gaines and Deke Elementary are both holding fun, spirit-driven events every day for the month of March. Please check these schools' calendars for more info regarding these daily events, which include things like dress-ups and theme days. Youth baseball and softball tryouts are being held on March 10th from 5 to 8 p.m. in the middle school cafeteria. And moving to the high school, our current student council held a blood drive on March 5th. The class of 22 is holding a Culver's fundraiser on March 16th, so be sure to stop by Culver's on March 16th from 5 to 8 p.m., and a portion of the sales will go to the class of 2022. An email has been sent out to all Swartz Creek juniors and seniors regarding what a COVID-19 prom would look like, and there's a survey. It is prudent that this form is filled out as soon as possible. If you are a parent to a Swartz Creek junior or senior, please encourage your student to fill out this form and relay the information within this email to you. Most importantly, a large portion of high school students have approached me today, actually, showing discontent for the potential of having a mandatory 7-hour workday next year. And so some of their concerns include how this will interact with the GCI schedule, how a 7-hour day would affect kids who are in dual enrollment. Some students believe having a 7th period adds more stress than 6 classes currently offer, and some students were confused how kids who are currently struggling with 6 classes are expected to maintain 7 courses next year. Some students ask why students who are on track with graduation have to alter their schedule. Many wonder why this can't be optional or for all students and mandatory for those who require it. Some students worry that this will put stress on teachers and students, especially those teachers who are teaching online or have hybrid students. Some students believe it will be difficult for freshmen to transition to the high school with moving from 6 classes to 7. Shorter classes make it harder for AP students, specifically because they need all the time they can get in those classes, and I can definitely attest to that. One student in my AP government class today made a point saying overworking, high-achieving students like AP students might feel the draw to take another AP class within that course because they have the opportunity to, and they worry that this might be overwhelming for some students because taking 3 AP classes in a day, let alone 4, is probably a lot of work for some students. Another student in my AP government class today made the point that more unweighted classes for AP schedule would actually deplete the GPA of our AP students due to how weights work and such. And so because of this puts more strain on AP students in terms of GPA and in terms of work for students who might take more courses. Lastly, I have 2 quotes from 2 separate students that I believed were prudent to be shared with the board. One student says, "I spend all of my free time doing work and don't go to bed until past 12 a.m. every night." This student takes 2 AP classes and dual enrollment. And she says, "With that being said, how are students supposed to manage 7 classes of work, be expected to get a good night's sleep so they can succeed for the next day, as well as be expected to have shortened classes, which gives less time for work to be done and for questions to be asked?" And one other student stated that this plan seems to prioritize the needs of 20% of the student body at the expense of the other 80%, even though the needs of the 20% could be satisfied with other increasingly effective and personalized solutions. I also find it important, however, to highlight the benefits of such a switch, which would include new elective options for students, and because of this would also allow for schedule personalization for students who can then personalize their schedule to how they want their college career to go or to get more credits that they would believe would be beneficial for college. And so overall, personalizing your schedule to fit that of how you see your future is something that is offered with this switch. And the obvious, this gives students who are behind on credits the ability to catch up, and gives students who are on track with their credits the ability to get ahead of the curve from students who are rather than students who are currently behind. Lastly, but certainly not least, spring break is rapidly approaching and school will end on March 26th and will resume on April 5th. And that is all.
Thank you, Brendan. Any questions for Brendan?
I have a quick question. I don't know that you know the answer. I know a lot of that was announcements, so thank you for all that. I just Googled the Coke caps. I just wondered if it was all Coke products, or if it specifically has to be Coca-Cola.
I am not sure. I saw it
I
on
don't
a
know.
flyer
I'm trying to
on
find that
Facebook.
too, so I thought maybe I'd ask you if you knew offhand, but it just makes me think about looking underneath my bottle caps, because I don't necessarily drink pop, but
Right.
there may be other products that participate.
Brendan, thank you, and I think some of your comments from the students are very valuable, very helpful. Hopefully, we can address some of those tonight.
Thank you.
I will report in our academic achievement report, but then Mr. Meinke and Mr. Heatherton can also share.
Thank
All
you.
right? Thank you. All right. Speaking of board committee reports, Brian, we have policy.
Yeah, we have a copy of my minutes in the packet, if you want to follow along there or just listen. We met yesterday, March 9th, Tuesday, 0600 to 7:06 a.m. We had a complement of people in attendance. It's listed there on the report. We continue with the truant policy discussion, review, and recommendations. We worked through the policy checklist discussion, and we worked through policies number 1201 through 2504, submitting and discussing recommendations and options, recommended options. Superintendent Ben Manka recorded recommendations and alternate policies for further discussions. Some of the policies we weren't able to get through, so we put them on the side till we had more time to complete those. The intent is for May approval of the new policy package. Mr. Manka would like to schedule an extended meeting. We're talking 2 to 3 hours, maybe 3 hours, very soon for the whole board to discuss and complete a final draft of policy. There was no public comment, and we were adjourned at 7:06.
Any questions for Brian? Thanks, Brian. And
You're
for
welcome.
anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to go through and look at the policies, it takes a while, so prior to the meeting to finalize our review, I would strongly encourage everybody to take that opportunity. It's a good opportunity, though. These are good policies, they're well organized, and not a lot of work for us to do other than making some comments where we need to and making choices.
They are very simplified.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Just something
Sure.
real quick. I apologize. In my report, I failed to mention 2 things, and one of them is extremely important, and one of them is less important. But just as a reminder, I am planning to bring back, as Jack brought forward at our last meeting, I have a couple templates that I've been looking at in terms of minutes, meeting minutes, to try and bring some consistency and, increase transparency around how the minutes are done. I'd like to potentially bring those to a future meeting, maybe in April, so that you can look at those, review them, and see if there's a particular format that you like. I apologize that I forgot this. It's probably the most important part of my update, but I have had the opportunity to work with Joanne Franklin for quite a few years, and it's been an honor to work with her, and she, at the end of this school year, is going to be retiring. And so I want to wish her the best, and she's going to finish out the school year, so she's not going anywhere just yet, but we're going to start the process of filling her position, and just want to wish Joanne all the best, so please do that.
Thank you, Joanne. We won't cry yet.
Speak for yourself,
I
Carrie.
know, I know. But we do know that you look forward to spending time with your family and your wonderful little grandson, so thanks.
It's an honor meeting all of you and working with you and being able to serve this community in my 31 years of education, working within education. This is a great way to end my career with a great school and great team providers. Thank you.
We so appreciate you.
You all.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was an important part.
It was.
Yes, it was. All right, moving on. We have an academic achievement meeting which met on Tuesday morning. We did review some of the kindergarten informational information. Rod presented the flyer and information about the virtual town hall that here's an advertisement for the community. Tuesday, March 23rd, there'll be a virtual town hall if you want to register your children for kindergarten. And then virtual registration begins that same day, and in-person registration will be available April 15th. High school 7-day period was discussed. Mr. Kitchen and Mr. Heatherton talked about that. I won't steal anybody's thunder because I think you guys are going to talk about it pretty extensively. But it did provide, if that's where we go, an opportunity for some more course flexibility, the variety of courses, and some credit recovery opportunities and enrichment classes, which I'll let you gentlemen talk about. And so it's an interesting and exciting opportunity if we decide to go in that direction. There was no public comment. And are there any questions? We look forward to your update. All right. Mike, did you want to do finance, please?
Yes. Finance Committee met on Monday in person, with the exception of Jessica Lenave, who was on Zoom. We discussed the bond project budget to actual report, and the copies on the website for your review. We discussed the band instrument purchase line item in the budget that was put on hold due to the COVID pandemic. That hold has been lifted, and the band director will be notified that to proceed with the purchasing of the instruments. The bids for the PA system for the high and middle schools in Cyrene and the bids for the Moorish boiler are in and on the agenda for approval tonight. The middle and high school bid for asbestos abatement is pending and due on March 19th. The check register has been reviewed, is available on the website also. Following is noted. General fund, 159 checks for a total of $336,990.97. Payroll, 18 checks, $2,514,174.59. Building and site, 1 check, $1,417.59. Food service, 2 checks, $58,634.95. Student account fund, 4 checks, total of $6,207.33. Bond fund, 3 checks, for a total of $477,720.24. The invoices for 3 checks were pulled and reviewed and discussed. The first 2 were for flood damage and item restoration at Deke, which occurred last fall. The third invoice was also discussed, and that was a safety issue and installation of a railing on the high school gym stage, which is being utilized as lunch seating due to the COVID pandemic. We had discussion regarding the itemizing of invoices and payment of claims, and we will be discussing that issue further at the policy committee as we go through the new policy. There were no public comments. The next meeting is April the 12th at 2 p.m. And we adjourned at 2:49. Any questions?
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Chuck, can you do the building and site report, please?
The meeting started at 3:04 p.m. Present was Jessica via Zoom, me, Mike, Brian, Ben, Rod, RC, and Chris Gray. We had it at the PAC Center. The first one was a pool aquatics update. The pool's working properly, as stated before in last month's meeting. The filters, gaskets, some piping, and stands still need to be replaced. They'll be replaced by the end of the month. That cost was $8,800, and the low bidder was Johnson Pool, as stated last month. As We're just waiting on that. Next one was sinking funds for the district. Ben and Chris stated that the sinking fund liability still needs to be approximately $240,000 for this year. RC is using, once again, the facility system study, taking priorities that need to be fixed ASAP into his assessment, and he concurred with Brendan and Chris that the amount should work in the $240,000 range. RC did provide a detailed spreadsheet on items he's already identified. Number one was the PAC exterior wall for $17,000. Number two was the 300 to 400 wing of the high school roof. He's getting quotes currently on that. He did not have a price. Number three, the water drainage in the pool tunnel. This is something new that's popped up. There's water seeping into the tunnel by the pool. That cost would be approximately $19,500. Number four, you need 6 roof exhaust fans at a cost of approximately $8,500. Number five, still pending, is the Little Dragon Learning Center. The grant was approved for $43,000. We'll still have to kick in approximately $45,000. The Morris boiler, which we're going to talk about today, that is $27,866, all from sinking funds, and other projects hopefully will be announced at the April meeting per RC and Ben. Next item was the pool tunnel repair. I just kind of went over that. They found that the pool tunnel is leaking, water seeping into the pool area and the tunnel area, and that cost will be $19,500. He's already received a bid on that. Budgetary, the items at Mary Crape have been appraised, and the prices have been determined. The bidding for these items will begin in April or May, and the sale of auction budgetary will keep approximately 20% of all profits from items sold. The prices that have been appraised still have to be approved by the district, which I believe will be Ben, Chris, and RC together. Next agenda item was the Sonatrol upgrade. Sonatrol is coming this Friday to give bids for the additional doors and entrances due to the construction and some upgrades to include remote disarming. RC stated if we do remote disarming, this could potentially save quite a bit of overtime. There will be some other upgrades done to buildings as needed. They will walk through this Friday once again, and hopefully will give us a good quote for next month's meeting. Should be noted that Sonatrol is our current vendor. The Cyrene cooler is out for the food services. The cost will be approximately $26,000. The money that will be utilized from this will be taken from the food services funds per RC and Chris. And then building signage, a new item per RC. We need a lot of new signs, obviously for all the district buildings, driveways, entrances, the flow of traffic due to all the construction, new entrances, and different things that are happening in the parking lots. RC said a company from Flushing named Flatlanders have been used before in the past. They're going to do the design only, and the amount of signs will be determined by the district, and then bids will be put out to all local sign companies so everybody can have an equal bid on this. And then once again, the LDCL's roof that was discussed, the grant was approved, and we will have to kick in approximately $45,000. The cost total is about $88,000. I do have some questions underneath board comments on that from myself to Ben. And then the middle school transformer, the transformer has to be replaced at the middle school, and this is probably one of the targeted items that the funds will be utilized from the sinking funds. There is no public comment. The meeting ended at 3:55 p.m. and that was it. Thank you.
Any questions for Chuck? Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate that. Okay, now we are moving on to board discussion items. The Swartz Creek Community Schools initiatives to address the gap discussion. Ben?
Thank you. Yeah, so we obviously have talked for several months now, and the concern is duly noted about some of the gaps that we're finding with just where our students are at. A lot of our kids have just missed a lot of school. And so how are we addressing that, and what are some possible ways that we could pull some things together? One major thing that is a huge benefit to us in our district is our MTSS system. That stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. Mr. Heatherton is very actively engaged in leading that effort, and I believe that through many of what things we're going to talk about are going to be proposed funding from our ESSER II funds that are coming from this federal package. These are one-time funds, but I think that they can help us as we kind of look at how we address the gap. So one of those ways through our MTSS system is to increase the amount of intervention and support, particularly with reading and math at the early levels, and being able to, especially at the early K-1-2 buildings, really hone in on some intensive reading support. We are making plans to do that, and we have quite a few ideas on how to make that happen. We've also talked extensively about social emotional learning and how a lot of the students in this time have had some fractured friendships and struggled with anxiety, depression, motivation. We are looking at how we can infuse some additional social work and support in that arena, and so we're outlining and looking at a plan not just for this summer but also into the future. An additional strategy that we're looking at, and we've talked about this, is the planning of a comprehensive summer school program for our K through 8 students. And that program would be an 8-week program. We would be looking to provide food as well as transportation. In consultation with several other people recently, we're looking also at the possibility of providing before and after school care for those students. So the summer school program will have a bus that runs. We're looking at the hours of around 9 o'clock and finishing around 1. Those are subject to change, but oftentimes for somebody who's a working family, they may need some workaround for that. So we're looking at that and how we could make that work. We have outlined, and Mr. Heatherton has outlined a preliminary proposal for a budget in terms of the staffing. It's going to be upwards of $200,000, it looks like, in terms of just the staffing portion. That doesn't include drivers for bus. It doesn't include the food service portion. We believe that the vast majority, actually we believe all of this, will be able to be paid for out of these ESSER II funds that are coming as these one-time monies, as well as some grants that we have previously set aside for summer school programming. So our goal and our vision for this K-8 is that they are in-person learning experiences that we can provide to our kids that need them, as well as providing a fun STEAM-based education experience where, as you know, in the past we've run STEM camp, and having an opportunity for kids that also are looking for enrichment. So you might be a parent that says, my student seems to be struggling, they're behind, this would be a great opportunity. You also might have a student that you say, I would like them to get a little bit more enrichment and really engage with their peers around some of these project-based experiences. This is also a great opportunity. So we're looking at our first step being to post and hire a summer school coordinator, and they will be involved in a lot of the planning, and then subsequent to that we will be sending out surveys to try and gauge parent interest, at what level, at what grade level, and then determining from there the scope of the program, because we obviously will have to know who the students are in order to be able to make plans for bus drivers and things like that. Mr. Heatherton, anything else I skipped that you want to speak up on summer school, or?
No, just that it's the most comprehensive effort we've put forth so far in running any program. I do know that the 3-5 program will be run out of Deke, and that the K2 program will be run out of Moorish, and we're still kind of up in the air on the 6-8, depending on construction.
Yep. So I appreciate Mr. Heatherton's work on that. It's been extensive, and we continue to look forward to offering the best summer program, most comprehensive program that we've ever run. I also would just add that for our 9 through 12 students, we are working with the intermediate school district and doing a virtual credit recovery summer school program. Some of our teachers will likely be teachers in that program, but our students, let's just say we're offering a class in chemistry, and we don't have a particular teacher that's teaching that for summer school. If that wasn't an interest they had, there may be a teacher from, say, Davison. So our student would take the class, the Davison teacher would teach it, just like we might have some kids from Flushing or Fenton in our class that our teachers are teaching. And so we're exploring this idea of a countywide summer school program 9 through 12 from a credit recovery perspective, and we believe that there's going to be some pretty neat things coming out of that as well. So I've listed a lot of different things. Something else that we have brought up, and Brennan certainly did a nice job of reporting on, was the 7-period school day for the high school. So to give you a little bit of a background on this, we do have a number of students who are credit deficient at the high school. We're hopeful that some will be able to make up some ground at the summer school this summer. But essentially what a 7-period day does is it does not change the beginning or end time for a student, it changes the hourly schedule. So, you know, this year we had 50-minute periods. That would be the same as next year because obviously this year we had some extended passing times with COVID. But in a traditional school year prior to this year, we had 60-minute class periods in a 6-period day. I'm not saying that the 7-period day is so superior to a 6-period day, but I do believe it has some benefits that may assist in the district at this time. We have talked to the high school staff as a whole. We've also talked with the teacher leadership team. We've also started to get some parent feedback as well as student feedback, and Brennan has alluded to a little bit as well. So to try and provide a little bit more scope and understanding of what this is, essentially doing this type of a schedule is something that we would not be looking at making a permanent change. To be clear, we're looking at possibly making this a 1-year pilot, where we would say, you know, this is an opportunity for students to engage in this. For some that are behind, they can catch up on things. But I think there are much more advantages to our students other than just that. And so there are a number of programs at our school, such as young adult literature or creative writing, or maybe even certain types of computer engineering classes that don't run currently because there's just a lot of inflexibility in a student's schedule. So you might see a situation where you have a band student that is trying to also take an AP course. They can't take the course because those are run at the same time, and in building the schedule, it can be very challenging. Another huge advantage, I believe, is the reduction of class size. There is mathematical proof that this will reduce class size by virtue of having fewer people on planning every hour, which therefore draws down the overall class size. That allows the high school to do some really innovative things as it relates to some of their advanced or even support classes and lowering that size even further. Some other things that, you know, Brennan mentioned and we've really been considering, and it is a valid concern, is what about the students that feel like this is going to be additional stress, right? What about how much of a stress is this really going to be? And so certainly the potential exists. You know, if Brendan decided that he was taking 3 AP classes or 2 AP classes and wanted to take a 4th, that would be a very stressful thing, and that might not be the best thing. Now for him, he'd probably handle it just fine, but that might not be the case for the average student. So our counselors are going to work very hard at matching students to the coursework that best suits them. And what I mean by that is the high school staff is going to be working at grouping their courses. So there are going to be what we call like a tier 1 course, which is all of the classes that are, say, your normal general education classes, your AP classes. Those classes, you will have homework. You will have, they are rigorous courses. They're a part of the general curriculum, okay? The next tier of classes are what we would refer to as enrichment classes. These classes are classes that they are not homework intensive. They are not classes where they are graded, but they're not classes that are going to be held over someone's head as you got to get all of these assignments done. And it's also not a grading intensive class for the teacher. These classes, such as young adult literature, would be a time where kids could explore books that they're reading and talk about them with their teachers and really explore an enriching experience. They might be classes like AP Science Block, where a kid who's taking AP Biology or AP Chemistry can actually take that course in a 2-hour block, which gives them a much better chance of performing well on the AP exam. It's also classes like you know, computer engineering and design, where they get a chance to explore some career and technical areas that they maybe otherwise couldn't have explored before because their schedule wouldn't allow for it. And those classes in that second tier category are not homework intensive. So a counselor sitting across from a student who is feeling the burden of, I don't want to have any more homework, they definitely should not take a tier 1 class. They should be looking at a tier 2. Even better than that, the district is going to now be able to explore through our NTSS initiative a fully experiential tier 3 grouping, which is essentially our support classes. So you might need some extra time in math, some extra time in reading or social studies. And so being able to have a support class that we currently run called Stride and really expand that across all the different classes, being able to have some additional intervention time. All of those things I think are going to be very important for our students who are struggling. So I want to be clear that we're not looking to add stress, and so simply by adding an extra period, we may be opening up the opportunity for kids to get more support and not more homework. And that's kind of the way that we're looking at that and analyzing it. Regardless of the decision we make tonight, we're kind of looking for, you as a board to discuss some of these things, give us a little bit of feedback. We're starting to get student and parent feedback. We'd like to start to make a decision soon because obviously we're planning for next year and needing to kind of move forward. In any decision that's made, we are looking at this as a pilot, as I said before, and at this time there would be no need to change the graduation requirements. In 8 months, 9 months, we would want to come back to this conversation and make a decision at that point on whether you would like it to continue. And if you would want to continue, then we would need to talk about changing our graduation requirements, upping that requirement to match the schedule that we would be running. If the decision is we've talked to parents and students and staff and we've decided we don't want to keep doing this type of a program, it's very easy, as long as we know in advance in the spring, we can switch back and go back to our 6-period schedule. We haven't changed graduation requirements, no harm, no foul. So I believe it's a worthwhile innovation to look at. Our team at the high school is exploring it, and I'd like just to ask, if you have any input or questions as a board.
Can I add some?
Sure.
So,
I'll get you next.
I guess first, say this. When I was listening to Brendan, I took down some notes here. Some of the student concerns being that you'd have 7 hours rather than the 6. Obviously, Ben has just addressed it, saying it isn't an actual hour, it's 50 minutes, which I know doesn't seem like a lot, but that 10 minutes is what is making up that extra 50 minutes for that 7th hour, which, yeah, you get it. So anyways, the next thing is for students who might struggle with grabbing that extra AP class or picking up a new math class, another challenging class like that, we, at the high school, we do offer support classes, be it for math, English, or otherwise. We also have a class called Skills for Success, which in essence is kind of like a study hour where we would have a teacher in the classroom to give support to students who need it, but it would be a period where they could focus on doing their work, doing any extra homework that they might incur from taking an extra class, or just any homework that they have from their classes that they already have. And then Ben kind of touched on this, but for like science, you got the labs, right? So for an AP Chem class where, let's be honest, their labs can get spread out over a few days, or they're just jammed in and you don't have a lot of time to really focus on them. This could give an opportunity to those types of classes to actually get more in depth. And at our high school, I would say it's our science classes, our chem classes, where we kind of are lacking in terms of AP. This would give an opportunity to not only improve those classes, but also make our AP scores go up and give them more time to study, to do labs, and to get more in depth with what they need to do. The next thing I want to kind of touch on is the opportunity for growth here. Now, obviously, we kind of want to do this as a pilot just to see, or at least I do. I don't want to speak for the rest of the board. I'd like to see this done as a pilot, just for a year to see where it can go. But in the future, let's say we do continue with this, rather than this year bringing our standards down a little bit, or just saying, you know, let's let these kids that are deficient with their credits, let's just let them graduate and get away with it. What if instead we took those standards and we actually gave them the support they needed, with the opportunity to, in the future, if this was successful and we wanted to keep it, with the opportunity there in the future to actually improve and raise our standards even maybe a little bit. So from my perspective, that's kind of where I'm at. So it gives us opportunities for growth, for support, and all in all, in my eyes, I think this has more benefits than it does detriments.
Thank
I
you.
yield my time.
Anyone else? I think Mike, I'll take Mike and then you, Alicia, okay?
And Brian, I think we all do.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I got two questions.
Sure.
Back to the summer school coordinator. Is that going to be one of our administrators, or will we be going outside?
Our hope is that we're going to try and find one of our teachers, one of our current teachers, and hopefully, and it's not going to be a requirement, but hopefully somebody that may have an interest in the future of administrative aspirations. It is going to be very organizationally focused, so they're going to be planning, they're going to be overseeing, they're going to be spending a lot of time there. So we would like it to be one of our current teachers is kind of our target and what we're looking at there.
Okay. My other question, if we have a student that's on track with their credits and they're heading to graduation, and they don't desire to take the 7th hour, is it mandatory?
Well, the challenge that we run into, and we've talked a lot about that, if there's not a structure, right, for all students, then the only other way to get to that would be to say, well, then some kids can have something before school or after school. There are two primary challenges with that. First, and we have explored it, and I think it's a good idea. First would be we don't necessarily have that built into our collective bargaining agreement. So that would require further deliberation with our local unit. Secondly, the students that have struggled that would need that support, they do not necessarily have rides and transportation before school or after school to make something like that happen. So yes, it's possible and that could be done. Whether or not we would actually have the benefit of having that, I'm not sure that it would be overly successful in terms of being able to reach the kids that need it. But to the student that is on track, we would look and say, are you a student that is capable and ready? The counselors are going to be doing actual counseling in this, right? Are you a student that's ready and wanting to push themselves? Or are you a student that's ready and wanting to have some additional enrichment? So you're on track, you don't have anything else. You want to go to one of those tier 2 or tier 3 classes where I need a skills for success, as Jack mentioned, or I'd like to take a class on learning how to wire plugs. I've never had known how to do that, and I can go ahead and take that class, and it doesn't stop me from taking my other classes, and there's no additional homework. So we're looking at, it would need to be structurally most likely for all students, but we don't necessarily want all students to have to take another class that's going to put more homework on their plate or anything like that.
Okay,
Alicia?
thank you.
Thanks. That's fine.
First of all, Brendan, thank you for your feedback and the students that came forward. And I have to commend you that you're obviously approachable, so the students know that they can come to you and they can bring that here. So I applaud your role coming into our tables. I sat here shaking my head going, Those are all the same questions as a parent, but also board member that I brought forward and have presented some concern with this concept. However, I am starting to see a lot more benefit as well. I would like to ask, I know the answer myself, but I'd like to ask for the public perspective more than anything, but also the students, the question about how GCI students can potentially benefit from this little bit of extra as well. And then just to highlight, I know a lot of your feedback may be current seniors or even juniors in a lot of your direct contacts. And I think to Mike's point in question, for those juniors that may be hearing this or thinking about it, like all of a sudden I've been along the same path this whole time, I'm going into my senior year and now you're gonna throw more on my plate. And please correct me if I'm wrong, however, when you get to that point where you're towards the end and you do have enough credits, you're on track, there's always that little bit of wiggle where you literally don't have to necessarily take all of those credits because you really truly still are on track. So there's still media center options, adjusting your schedule a little bit because you don't have to start right at first hour. So there is a little bit of that give when appropriate with your counselor as well. But I think the opportunities to take those classes that, if you're really geared and focused on the academics, is really hard to kind of squeeze in. So anyway, I'm going to throw that back to you if you can speak on the GCI.
Sure. So a lot of our students, we are the #1 school district in Genesee County that participates in the GCI Innovation Zone. And I think it's one of the best programs in the state. If you've not gotten a chance to see what they do out there, it's incredible. And our kids are benefiting from that. Even some of our own board members' children are benefiting from that program. One of the challenges that all of our students in GCI face is the transportation barrier. They're right now in a 6-period school day. They have a 3-hour block. Well, their coursework is over 2 hours. So what happens in their GCI class, if they're taking, say, an auto trades or something like that, they're driving to GCI, or they're trying to leave the building midday or before school starts, and then they're rushing, trying to get back in time for their next class to start. The counselors see this as a huge advantage in a 7-period day, because now we can build, it's actually a 4-hour block for the GCI kids. They don't miss out on any of their core academics, but they have that extra period. So it works out to be about an extra 25 minutes of drive time and travel time, so that they're not trying to rush, they're not trying to squeeze that in. I think it'll actually cut down on some of the tardies coming from GCI and going to, and it just kind of builds a natural buffer in for the students taking GCI. You don't have to change your schedule. You still get to take the same number of classes here, but you have that extra cushion in terms of travel time at GCI.
Could I add one more point as well, only because I know I personally experienced this. It also gets really tricky in some of the programming that you do want to have at the high school. I'll use, for example, band is pretty much set, and it gets very difficult in trying to coordinate around that. Having that little bit of extra buffer also helps in that situation, but also the offerings at GCI. Not every program is offered all sessions, so again, having a little bit more buffer on when they have to be here or return here gives a little bit more give that way too. So.
I think a key to this success of the 7-hour schedule is going to be through matching the student with the workload and the counselor. And I think it's going to be I hope it's not too much of a burden for the counselors. Are we going to be getting any more counselors, or are they going to be, because that to me is going to be the key to fit that individual student with the workload that they would appreciate, whether they're a high-achieving, high-performing student, or somebody who's just looking at credit recovery just to graduate. So I think a lot of the focus, well, a lot of the critical place would be at setting up and knowing the student, the individual student, and creating a program, a schedule for that individual student, so they will be a success.
Yes, absolutely, and our counselors have been involved in this from the ground floor. They were part of the group that proposed this as a possible idea alongside the high school team, and they, in conversation with them, would absolutely have to be on point with understanding their students. The great thing about our counseling team at the high school, and not every school district does this, our counselors, at least over the near past, have been meeting with their students every year. So when they go to sit down and schedule, they're trying to match those pieces. This is a new question, right? It's the most important question. If you have another course, because I agree with you, it's really dependent for the success for the students is going to be, are they matched to the right course?
Yes.
And that's going to be a priority for the implementation if this is something that we try to pilot.
Well, I'm glad the counselors have been stakeholders from the beginning, at the inception. I really appreciate that.
Thanks, Brian. Jessica or Chuck?
I have a couple of things, if I may. Number one, as Alicia said, thank you very much, Brendan, for addressing and asking the questions that you did and representing the students so well with this. I do have a question as well. I know, Ben, you spoke to a little bit, but of how easy or difficult it sounds like it might be a little challenging, but making the 6 or 7 period optional if there might be qualifiers in there. And then the second thing is can you speak to, as Brendan mentioned, how this affects GPAs for like the AP students?
Sure. So you're going to run a similar the same calculation as we do now. The difference is for next year, right? You're looking at the potential for a student to, if they took an additional AP class, which I hesitate to say because that is not our goal with this, but they could in theory have an additional weighted grade added to their GPA. We are certainly not advocating or pushing that. We would prefer to see a student that's already taking a couple AP classes take one of these enrichment courses that they otherwise haven't done, and that's certainly going to be the direction that the counselors would like to see this go. And in talking with many other districts that have done this well, that has been part of the success, is really making sure that the kids are not just taking an additional AP class. But to your question, it would impact them potentially if they had another course that they took as an AP. It could be weighted and then impact that in that capacity. Obviously, you're still, all of the GPAs and everything are calculated the same way. You're using the same protocol and scale. You're just adding one more grade each semester next year into that mix.
Anything else, Jessica?
Not right now, thanks.
Thank you. Chuck?
No, I'm good, Carrie, thank you.
Thank you.
Brendan had your hand was risen earlier.
Oh,
I
I'm
didn't
so
know if you had
sorry.
something
I
else
was just
to
gonna
add.
make a comment to piggyback off of what Mr. Sepanek said, which was the counselors. I think from a student perspective, I think in general, we would benefit from the hiring of another counselor because I think the counselors, bless their souls, are spread very, very thin. And it is often frustrating on the student body because we often have a hard time communicating with our counselors or have a hard time getting a solid answer from our counselors because they are spread so thin. So that just resonated with me as a student, and I figured that's actually something that I think in general, not even specifically just for this specific facet, but in general, that would benefit the high school specifically.
Thank you, Brendan. Go ahead, Jack.
And one thing I'll say, and I'm kind of back off of what he said here, is I agree with him on this. Our counselors are spread pretty thin. For the public that doesn't know how we kind of do this, we take the last names of our students and we bunch it up into 3 groups, I believe it is. We have A through something, and then the middle group, and then it's M through Z, basically. And we take each of those groups and we assign them to a counselor, and each counselor takes every student from that group from every grade. So I would agree with Brendan here on the point that our counselors are spread extremely thin when it comes to students like that. So maybe it would be beneficial if we were to adopt this to get that 4th counselor for the sole purpose of giving them more time one-on-one with the student to maybe hopefully effectively give better feedback to the student as well as to that counselor, so the student isn't taking on an extra class that maybe they can't handle. I think that's a good point, Brendan.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. I was thinking in my head, I should ask Brendan, how does it work in practice? And, well, I'm glad you spoke up because I didn't get to that.
I love our counselors. Our counselors do so much work. But simply speaking from the student perspective, it can get very frustrating trying to interact with your counselors. Like especially, for example, our seniors this year, we had a lot of things where we had to reach out to our counselors to get them to send a transcript to a school or to fill out the counselor portion on the Common application, which is an application that you can use to apply to numerous colleges. And sometimes your counselor might not get your email in time. Like, I know for me, for example, I missed out on getting one of my transcripts turned in on time, and it all wound up working out anyway, but like, it was just very frustrating and nerve-wracking in the moment because I was like, college, my future, stuff like that. And so I just know, specifically for seniors, it can get very pressing dealing with the counselors because they are spread so thin, but they do such good work and they work very hard. So yes, I want to make sure we understand that because our counselors are doing a lot. I just genuinely think they would benefit from having an extra set of hands.
Thank you for that input.
Thanks, Brendan. So I want to go back to the conversation we had at Academic Achievement briefly about being able to develop tracks, learning tracks for students who might be interested in a certain area. For example, I think Mr. Kitchen used building trades, so construction. You could then do drywalling, and you could actually plan out your courses over the 4 years in high school or over the next 2 years so that it becomes easier to do. But you can also put those, what you're calling enrichment classes, which I would equate them to college elective classes. You know, it's not basket weaving, but it is something like, you know, I decided to take a business class in college because it was a break from my reality. And can you talk a little bit about that and how that might work to help students plan ahead?
Yeah, so I don't want to mislead or misrepresent that certainly this is going into this, we're thinking of it as if we were to move forward and we're still getting feedback, it would be a pilot, but also you have to also think long-term, as Jack was describing, raising the bar a little bit. And I think when you think about what this could do in terms of freeing up and creating options for kids in the future, some schools, particularly that have adopted more flexibility like this through different scheduling techniques, they've actually created tracks in their system where it's like, you know, you always will have a regular high school schedule, but maybe you've decided as a young you know, person at freshman year, sophomore year, you're really wanting to push yourself into the business field, so you can start to take courses like finance and marketing and entrepreneurship, and these classes build to a business endorsed diploma. You might actually, with our STEM edition, see kids taking a trades course where they're looking at maybe doing something in framing and carpentry, and they end up being able to sit for a builder's exam by the time they graduate. You might see kids that are looking to go into the medical field have the opportunity to do some interning and some bringing back some real world things that they can take courses like medical terminology and some of those other things that improve their ability to sit for the EMT exams. Being able to feed into where we want kids to be college and career, this does open up in the future the opportunity to do some very innovative things that I believe could be a draw for people. I think we would want to clarify that we're talking about what the future could be, you know, if this went well. And I think we need to, you know, if we were to pilot it, that would be some of the questions we would have is how would we organize this into the future if it were to stick around versus, you know, we would go back to a 6th period or not. So, but definitely the potential is there to do some very innovative things.
Thank you for sharing that, Ben. Go ahead, Alicia.
I want to add a comment, and actually, Brendan, if you don't mind, a little anecdotal addition. I think also of how much many of our extremely academically focused students would love the opportunity to be able to take some of that just feel good break from reality. I mean, these enrichment classes really do just speak to your soul more than anything. And I'd love your feedback, Brendan, knowing you personally, very academically focused. Have you had the opportunity to take that class you wanted to, that you just can't fit it in your schedule, and then end up having to make the decision? Do I take this AP class? Do I really need it? Like, what's better for my future? Or can I take this creative writing because it just interests me and I would love to be able to do that? And that option, whether you can see the structure opening up that option, and hold on before you answer that, because I add another question to that. How many times we close those classes because ultimately we have like a handful of kids and not enough to actually staff an entire classroom full of those kids. So we have these great opportunities, somebody willing to teach it and skilled to teach it, yet not enough kids can sign up for it. So kind of dual part, but if you could answer that, and then you can go back to the
Yeah,
closing classes out.
I actually, more than the average student, I would say, have had a lot of issues with fitting classes in my schedule because I am in band and choir as a class, and those classes are just so, and then I'm also in AP classes, and so those classes, they just never lined up. So my sophomore year, actually, this is the most prudent example I can think of. The way my classes lined up, I couldn't take AP Gov where I wanted, and I couldn't take bio, and I was like, everything wasn't working out, and I wound up taking all the AP classes I wanted to, and then I wound up taking my honors English 10 class as an independent study in order to be in all the classes I can. And so that is something that I really do resonate with this plan, is giving students the ability to shift around their schedule a little bit and giving a little wiggle room and leeway for that. And that's something that I definitely do think is a plus to this entire, especially from my own experience.
Thank you. And I anecdotally, I have two kids, totally different tracks. Both would have benefited for a little bit of extra wiggle.
And both
For two
geniuses.
totally different reasons, so.
Yeah, and I would say, while I agree with everything Brendan said, a lot of times what happens is the students never even get that choice, because what happens is they may have signed up, their first choice was, doing a web design class, but that web design class, because of the nature of the way the schedule was, we couldn't run it because there wasn't enough. Now, opening these up, there will definitely be the opportunity for those things to happen. So if that were to be the case, those kids would have been able to explore those courses that they otherwise would have liked to.
Yeah. And then one other, it's comment, I know at this point, this is still new, it's a little novel, we are investigating, you guys are investigating, I should say, we're just asking the questions. Obviously, we want the teacher feedback on the ability to teach some of those that may be a little bit more exciting even to teach. But that option of less labor intensive, less homework intensive, hopefully will also be a little bit of relief for them too, that's also a workload question and issue. If they can be structured in that sense that, you're picking up essentially an extra caseload of kids, but if it's not super homework intensive, then hopefully it's not labor intensive either.
Yeah, and a lot of our teachers, a lot of the things that I spoke about have come from not our ideas, but when talking with teachers, they said, I'm concerned, they have concerns, right? I mean, anytime you're looking at doing something different, and their concerns were well placed, and many of which were brought up tonight, and they were a part of kind of thinking through, well, if we could know that we didn't have as many planning periods and we had courses that we enjoyed teaching, but we didn't have to worry about a lot of grading. Some of those things were born out of conversations with them. They need to be very involved, and probably more involved than they have in the past, in helping create the schedule in terms of, they're the experts, they're the ones in the classroom every day, and I think they bring a large opportunity for us to kind of really increase the collaboration around building that. And we've had a great relationship with our teachers, and we need to really explore that as we look at, if this happens, really working alongside them in that. So I'm excited about that possibility.
And this may be something, I don't know, you can speak to, or even Rod, but I would assume that we've got some teachers that have some other expertises or minors and certifications that essentially aren't being utilized either, just by nature of what their primary major is. And inability to open up some of those more enrichment classes?
Yeah, well, not only do they have other minors, but in many enrichment classes, you don't have to have a specific minor to teach it. You just have to have an interest level.
Okay, that's even more exciting. Okay, thank you.
Good discussion. Did you guys get what you needed from us?
Yeah, and I will certainly keep you posted and updated. I appreciate all of your comments, and if you have any other thoughts or concerns that come up, please let me know. We're going to be continuing to get some feedback over the next week or so, and then we'll communicate out kind of where we're at.
Do we have a timeline?
We would like to make a decision within the week.
Oh.
So we're
Okay.
trying to get we've been talking about it internally with the staff and that for a month or so, a little under a month. And now we need to, we're getting parent feedback, student feedback, and board feedback. And, but like I said, regardless of what we do, we're looking at it as a pilot, and we would be able to very quickly, in 8 months from now say, let's go back and no harm, no foul, or we want to really see how this can really make even bigger impact. So, we're going to continue to work this process through.
Well, thank you, and I know a lot of work has gone into this so far, and we appreciate that. I know you're always looking out for the best for our students and the staff, which is great.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving on, we have our extended continuity of learning plan discussion.
So I know that you see this is a statutorily required discussion that we have every month. And so you're used to seeing this report that I update for you every month. We have this discussion. You'll see the latest snapshot, there. I do believe, Jessica and Chuck, I sent that to you. If you don't have it, send it there. You can see the average cases, they're hovering well below what they were. We're talking significantly below. We're seeing the 7-day positivity rates, they're holding fairly steady below that 6-7%. We saw a little bit of a spike here over the last week, but overall the health department is feeling like we're in a very stable position in terms of the numbers. We have had internally some challenges as it relates to athletics. If you see, we had a situation where our basketball team, for example, there was a student that tested positive in another district, and it knocked our whole program out. So we have to, quarantine a whole basketball program. And then one of our students that tested positive knocked out, I think it was Fenton's program. So this is something that, because of the way it's not that all of those people are going to get COVID-19, it's the fact that they were potentially a close contact. And so in this last week, we've had a handful of school districts that have struggled with that. I know certainly others have struggled in wrestling and some others with this, but has been reported in the news. But overall, we are feeling very good about where the numbers are, the trends are. We would like to continue to have you affirm this evening that we maintain our face-to-face, hybrid, and online offerings that the parents have selected. We will, plan to maintain those students in those schedules as we move forward.
Thank you. Any questions for Ben?
I guess I got one.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Kind of related. Ben, have all our employees had the opportunity to get vaccinated?
We're doing very well with vaccinations. We started with about 200 employees that wanted the vaccine. I think we're down to the last 30. And those individuals should be able to go to a clinic in the next week, we hope. We started obviously we had two primary qualifiers, age and when they work with face-to-face with students on a daily basis. And all of those people have already been vaccinated that wanted the vaccine. We are exploring right now antigen testing as well for some staff. There's some interest to possibly do that. And antigen testing is essentially a very non-invasive nasal swab to basically every week, it's at the same time, and the science behind it is to try and capture somebody who may be asymptomatic before they were to possibly infect some people. The county is organizing that. We're dipping our toes in it. I wouldn't say, we're doing it wholesale, but it's something that we're exploring. But to the vaccine, yes, many of our staff, with the exception of a small few, have received the vaccine that wanted it.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions for Ben? Jessica or Chuck?
No, I'm good.
I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Finally, on our board discussion, we have our district operations and maintenance presentation. I think RC is here to visit us.
He is. So many of you know R.C. Hunt. He's our Director of Operations and Maintenance. And every month or so throughout the year, we try to bring a department in to present just some happenings so that you as a board have an idea of what they're doing and what work they're working on. I'm very excited about our new board facility where we'll be able to actually have more people come and have a really state-of-the-art way to present, including having students and staff from other buildings come. And so excited to have RC talk about a lot of the different things that he's working on in his department. So I'll turn it over to you, RC, whenever you're ready.
Can everybody see that fine on their computer? Yep. Hi, good evening. My name is R.C. Hunt. I'm the Director of Operations for the Swartz Creek Community Schools. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all of you for allowing me to present on behalf of the Operations Department. Tonight, I will be discussing the main components that make up the Operations Department. First, I'm going to kick it off with a quick, fun little video of me juggling the three departments: maintenance, transportation, and custodial. So as you can see here, at any given moment, my day could change in the blink of an eye. It could be anything from a flood to a fire, power outage, water main break.
They must have been filled with water, or somebody threw water on them.
There we go. So that is a quick description of how any day could end up for me. So we'll jump into, okay, so we're gonna jump into the organizational chart here. You can see that Mary, Rich Brownfield, Corey Went, and Michelle Robbins would report to me, and me, Mary, Corey, and Michelle, all of our offices are in the warehouse, the big white building located with the within the bus lot, and then Rich Brownfield is in the bus mechanic maintenance building across from the warehouse. So overall, we oversee close to 50 staff members when we are full, and we're right about full right now. anybody has any questions?
Go ahead, Brian.
I just had one real quick. Are our HVAC and the electrician, are they state licensed, or do we rely on contractors for the expertise?
No, they're both certified.
State licensed then?
Yes, electrician's license, yes.
Can you just speak a little bit to the impact that the cleaning requirements have had on your department at all?
And what, cleaning?
Yes, with basically our health and safety concerns currently, you know, the workload that gets put on your team.
Yeah,
First of all,
so,
thank you.
that's
Second of all,
pretty-
can you speak to
it-
that?
It is pretty complex. Throughout the day, we're constantly in communication with custodians. Sanitizations is the main priority. Hitting high contact points, door handles, lockers, pencil sharpeners, phones, anything that's a high touch point is the main priority. They're on call through the day if there's locker jams, stuff like that. After school is when we bust out our new backpacks that are sprayers. It's decreased the amount of time that it takes to sanitize a room substantially, which is what we needed on how much sanitization takes place. I mean, I can go into more detail.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
I just want to, basically, it's a plug to how hard your team's working, so thank you very much.
How many backpacks do we have available for the whole system?
I think we purchased 22 total.
Oh, wow.
We use 2 on our buses as well.
Okay.
Each building uses them on the playgrounds. Sanitize in between each class that uses the playground.
That's great. Thank you.
RC, do you anticipate using those backpacks in the future, even as the pandemic starts to wind down?
I would
mean,
think
just-
that we would, just because it's cut down on cleaning time substantially as well. Regardless if there's a pandemic or not, we still need to sanitize these rooms every day.
And how beneficial has the, I don't even know what to call it, I apologize for that, but the substitute call-in program for bus drivers? I know we're supplementing that program so that we can make sure that our transportation's running smoothly. I know we were all in favor and support of that, so has that been beneficial?
Student first.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
Thank you.
I apologize, don't remember the name.
Yeah,
of
we're
it.
using Student First right now. I believe we have currently 2 from Student First. Every day we're trying to post, we're trying to get it on the marquee outside of Mary Crapo. It's a statewide, nationwide shortage of bus drivers, so we're doing everything we can.
Would you say that it's cut down on the challenges in terms of doubling up runs and things like that, having access to that service?
It definitely has. A lot less doubles. The next concern would be when Flint goes back, they may take those drivers. The drivers get first come, first serve. If they like a run better in a different area, they may take that. So that's potential that might not always be there, but First Student is always recruiting bus drivers and always trying to fill any voids.
You mentioned we have 12 full-time bus drivers right now.
Yes.
So when students start to come back to the classroom, maybe next fall, those that are learning virtually, how much will you have to ramp up, or do you know?
Typically, if we have full staff, we'd have 16 runs.
Okay.
So anytime we need 16 runs, we drop below that, that's when we have a double. So if we would go down to 15 runs, then we need one driver to have to take 2 runs.
Are we able to hire the folks who come through that program?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yep, it is
I know
a
there are
possibility.
usually restrictions
Yep.
of some sort, but,
Yep.
okay. You know you have licensed and interested bodies, is what I'm asking. Okay.
RC, we're gonna have transportation for summer school. Will they be our employees? I mean, will there be enough that we won't have to use student first?
We're starting to get that question out to the drivers. I know there's quite a few drivers that will step up and do that. And then we do have a couple drivers that like their summers off. So once we get a number count and we know how many students we'll need to be transporting, then we can get the number out, how many drivers do we need, and we'll have to go by seniority, who wants it and who, like, we only need 6 drivers, top 6 seniority want them, then that's what we would take. The rest would be subs at that point.
Okay, thanks.
Alicia or Chuck, do you have any questions for RC?
Jessica?
Geez, so Pete, I did it twice tonight.
No? Thank you.
Jessica, also known as Alicia, do you have any questions?
No questions. I just want to say thank you very much. That was a really nice presentation. I very much appreciated it.
You're welcome.
And thanks to everybody for all the work they do in those 3 departments.
I would echo that, RC. It's nice to see you, first of all, and we know that you do juggle a lot with your teams, and thank you for all the great work you do on a regular basis, but this year I know has been particularly challenging, and you guys have done it with such grace.
Thank you.
Great presentation, thank you.
I want to add, great presentation. It was good.
Thank you.
Yeah, even though you weren't still juggling them, they didn't hit the ground, so that was still pretty impressive.
Can you really juggle?
Yeah,
That was great. I mean, that's amazing. I don't know if the folks at home could see it, but it was there, and you were juggling. Bowling pins. So thank you. Appreciate your presentation. All right. Moving on, we have several board action items, beginning with the approval of reaffirmation of the Swartz Creek Community Schools Extended Continuity of Learning Plan. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Brian and then Mike. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Joanne, could you please do roll call?
Certainly. Alicia?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes. Thanks,
7
everyone.
yeses.
Motion passes. Moving on, we have the Chartwell contract. And Ben, did you want to talk a little bit about that before we
Yep.
vote?
So every year we have an annual, because we have a food service management company, we have a requirement to just approve the contract. We've been with Chartwell's now for 2 years, no, 3 years now. And this is just our annual renewal of the contract, and they provide all of our food. They provide all of our menus, and our staff that work very hard, our own employees that serve our kids every day. But certainly Chartwell's is a critical partner in delivering a high-quality food service experience.
Thanks, Ben. With that, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Brian, and this time Alicia. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools School Board of Education approve the Chartwell contract 2021-22 as presented. Any comments or questions? None? I'm going to call on Ms. Joanne again.
Chuck?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And Jessica?
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is the approval of the delegate and alternate representatives for the GISD annual budget hearing. I'm going to ask Ben before we start. Do you know if this is a virtual meeting? It does not indicate that. I just want people to be informed before they
I actually
agree.
do not know that. I don't believe that it is. I believe they are now meeting in person.
Okay, okay.
So, but essentially, we are required to be able to have somebody at least nominated and delegated to the ISD for their budget hearing. So as board members, we just are looking for somebody who would represent the district and then an alternate in their place.
Jessica, were you our representative last year?
I was.
Okay.
Would anybody else like to take it? It's okay. If not, I'm happy to do it. If somebody else would like to, I'm okay with being an alternate.
Jack says no.
So,
the
so
only
Jessica, I'm going to put you down as the possible delegate with the alternate. We'll need an alternate.
I'll take the alternate position. if that's
Okay.
all right.
Jack has indicated he would be willing to be the alternate. And any other individuals who are interested? It basically entails going to the meeting, listening to the information, and voting on behalf of the school district. You're basically adopting their budget. Okay,
By the way, the request does say attend the meeting,
Okay.
attend, not,
so with that, I would entertain a motion.
So
so
moved.
move. Well,
Support.
support.
Alicia and Mike, comments or questions? Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve Jessica LaNave as delegate and Jack Sayer as alternate representative for GISD annual budget hearing as presented. Just as a reminder, this is on April 28th at 5 p.m. and we believe at the GISD. Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Certainly. Brian?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
And Carrie?
Thank you. Yes, and I want to thank the folks, thank you. I want to thank the folks for their volunteer spirit, Jessica and Jack. All right, moving on. Approval of the paging systems, Phase 2 RFP to Convergent Technology.
So this is for the PA system. This is a bond expenditure. This is for the PA system at Cyrene Elementary School as well as the middle school and the high school. And the amount with contingency total should be $146,262.
And do I have that? Thank you. With that, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Brian?
Support.
Mike? Any comments or questions?
Do we have an idea how many contractors bid?
There were 2 bidders on this
That's what
particular
I thought, yeah.
project. Yep. And those are listed in your bid package.
Okay, hearing no other questions or comments. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve the Paging Systems Phase 2 RFP to Convergent Technology for $146,262 to Digital Age Technologies. Is that correct? I want to make sure I state the vendor correctly. Yes? Yes, okay. Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Jack?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes. Sorry about that, yes.
Alicia?
Yeah, actually, can I ask a clarifying question? I don't know if it was stated in there. There's a contingency added in there, that's why that total is different from the bid? Was that in there? I'm sorry. Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
And Carrie?
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you. Motion passes. Finally, we have another opportunity for public comments. Do we have any, Travis?
Oh, we have
There's
one
one
more.
more.
Boiler.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I do not.
Okay. This right here is the
I do now. The approval of the Moorish boiler replacement.
So we have a boiler that went down at Moorish. We have the entire bid package here. Chris did a real nice job of pulling this all together, and RC as well. The encouraging thing, you have all of the raw bids there. We had 8 bidders. The low bidder on this was Detroit Boiler Company with a price of $27,866.49.
With that, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Jessica?
Support.
Brian? Any comments or questions? Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve Moorish boiler replacement bid recommendation to Detroit Boiler Company for a total amount of $28,866.49 as presented. Joanne?
Mike?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And Carrie?
Yes, thank you. Motion passes. Now we have an opportunity for public comment. Do we have anyone? Thank you. We have no public comment, I'm told. Moving on, we have comments and questions from our board members. Mike?
Yes. I highly support any opportunity that we can offer to close the learning gap. And I'd like to thank Ben and the staff and for all their hard work preparing for the summer school and for the 7th-hour pilot program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Alicia?
Thank you. I have three, actually. So first and foremost, Ben already congratulated publicly. I'd like to personally, and on behalf of other board members too, congratulate you, Brendan. I actually did the math. As one of 22 students out of 22,000 plus, that's 0.1%. I thought that was a 1% success rate. That's a 0.1. So extremely competitive program, Brendan. Very, very, very proud to have you represent Swartz Creek, and go blue. Second of all, I would like to just publicly acknowledge our class sponsors at the high school level. We have class sponsors across the board. I think they all do a fantastic job, but specifically at the high school, for all of the classes. However, for class of 2020, and as well for this graduating class of 2021, there are some extremely dedicated staff, parents, and community members that are really trying to go above and beyond to give these kids as much as they possibly can have in some extremely trying times. So I would just like to publicly commend everything that they are doing, and ask the community to give a little bit of grace. They're doing as best that they can with what they've been handed. And I can say as a mom, we're at least getting some stuff. So we can see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel, but really do appreciate that they are putting our kids first, and really trying any way they can to acknowledge these kids and their high school careers. So both for last year, I think it was an amazing end to a really hard graduation year, and then kind of a crummy start to this one, but there's a lot of work being done out there, so I'd just like to commend that. And then lastly, kind of hidden in all of our paperwork, was a resignation. I just want to wish some well wishes to, I just know him as Coach Fitz, but a loss to our program, but a huge opportunity for him. He will be missed on the field. Sometimes not. We go back. But anyway, anyway, I just want to thank him for all he has done for the school district and the team, being the football program, and wish him well in the future.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Go ahead, Brian.
I'd
Yes.
reiterate about Coach Fitz. Sorry to see him go, but I know there's opportunity, and I think he's going to be good at what he's stepped up to do.
We'll still beat him next year. That's the goal.
Yeah, we need to win. Brendan, I agree. That was incredible that you got that opportunity. So congratulations on that. And I'm looking forward to all the new things that are going to be opening up into the future, graduation, those kind of things. I'm really excited about all of that.
Anyone else?
Can I go on record that if you make it to Broadway, Brendan, we want first dibs at tickets? Just saying, okay?
I'll send some over.
Third row.
Okay.
Fine.
We'll let your mom sit up.
Jessica?
Thank you. If I may say, I really like to echo Mike and Alicia's comments. And I tried to do a little looking online, and I'm sorry I didn't ask earlier. Just I think maybe for the community about if there's an academic achievement difference between a 6 period and a 7 period. And I know that there people say blocks, and anyway, that we are doing all that we can for our students and helping them, and I very much appreciate in what the little bit that I read in support, not just what you've talked about, but additionally online, the support for the 7-hour period. And I think Mr. Micah said the other day that this is something that came from Mr. Kitchen and the staff at the high school, thinking about our students and what we could do, and that is very much appreciated. And Brendan, congratulations. I'm super excited for you, and I wanted to say that I very much appreciate that in your report you included all the grade levels. That just brought joy to my heart, so I really appreciate that you did that. And Joanne, I'm so glad that we have you till the end of the year. Thank you for all that you do. You are fantastic and such a blessing in my life and to this board and our district. So I very much appreciate that. And Coach Fitz will be missed in RC again. Thank you so much for that presentation and to all the staff. And I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Jessica. Chuck, I want to give you a chance if you have anything.
I just have a couple things. Congratulations to Brandon. The 7th period I think is a good idea, as long as it's done on a temporary basis, see how it goes for everybody. Hate to see Joanne go. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was earlier, I don't think, I might have missed it in our first board comments if we had the opportunity. The Mary Crapo building, I know that we've given an extension to the group for another year, but they already striked out twice, and I didn't feel too confident on their third position. I think some of the other members didn't really feel confident either. I think we had a split vote on it. I would like the board to at least look at the possibilities to go out and get bids. If we get stuck with that building, what are we going to do with it? Instead of waiting 6 to 8 months, and then if we get turned down again, what are we going to do? I don't know if we've thought that far out, because it's going to be a big financial burden on the district to figure out what to do with Mary Crapo, because we've let it go down for the last 2.5, 3 years, assuming that this group was going to purchase it. So either I hate to say it, I'd like to keep the building for us for some use, but from what everybody says, it would cost too much. So we may have to look at the proposition of raising the building, and then if we raise and keep the property, put, baseball fields or lacrosse fields or something in there and utilize it for the district, which I think would be a benefit to the city also. So next meeting, I would definitely like us to move forward and seeing what it would cost to get rid of that building or keep it, or have the board go in one direction or the other on that. That's all. Thank you.
Chuck, would you like me to just kind of get an idea from the rest of the board? Would you like me to possibly pursue getting somebody to look into getting a bid for what that demolition would cost potentially? I could get some preliminary work done ahead of the next board meeting. If that's, a request from the board, I can do that.
I would like that.
I think we need to do something instead of waiting to the last minute.
Yeah, once the
But
extension.
that's just my position.
So Jack, is there anybody opposed to me going out and seeing about what that would cost in, preliminarily, just in the event that something were to fall through?
I don't think
I
it
had the
hurts
question,
to
when's
do
our-
it. I think there's some other questions that were asked. Somebody asked, how long is the extension for?
The extension goes into, I believe, February.
Okay.
February. So with that, without any opposition and with Chuck's request, I will go ahead and start engaging what that would look like, and I'll try and have some information. I might not have any formal quotes, but I'll be able to at least get something started by the time we meet next at our next month's meeting.
I'd like to comment and just say, it's not that I don't have confidence in the group that is buying potentially the Mary Crapo building. It's more, in my head, I want just on in case it falls through, I would like to see a backup plan or a contingency there.
Great idea, thank you.
Okay.
Can I actually throw in on top of that? I had a lot of question going into that final extension too. Can we request of them to come back 6 months into their extension with an update?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that would be good. It would give us an idea too of how are things looking? Do we need to ramp up our plan B, or, okay, we're starting to feel a little bit better with another 6 months outlook, so.
Absolutely.
How's that sound to you too, Chuck?
That's a great idea. I just, I think everybody's probably thinking the same thing. I just
Yep.
don't want them to come back at the end and then they say, okay, give us another extension. Or, we just wait, because I think we've let the building go so far back now that it may not be feasible to restore it, even with all the money, that we could come up with, or either, raise it, like I said, which, board decision, but that's a great suggestion. So 6 months would be great. And if Ben could, in the meantime, give us some ideas on what it would cost to raise the building. And I don't even know if anybody could even renovate it with all the asbestos and everything in there, that we could even afford that. So, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for
If-
bringing that forward, Chuck.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. If there are no other comments, I would just want to reiterate, RC, thank you so much for being here. I think he may have left, but please convey our thanks to him for all that they do on his various teams. Rod, Ben, and teams, we've said it before, we can say it again. You just rock it every day. And I know you're always looking out for our students and for the staff, which I really, really appreciate. Brendan, thank you for all you're doing. We're going to miss you. But I hope that you learned some of your skills here in this place.
Most definitely.
One quick thing, Carrie, who's going to replace Brendan? Brendan, have you got any replacements? Have we talked about that, or what's going on with that?
We haven't talked about it. I have a couple ideas of people I think would be great candidates, but I imagine they're going to go through the
with
same
Carrie's approval,
process
why don't you bring that back to us next few months so we can get rolling on that, or talk to Mr. Kitchen and Mr. Mike about it.
Yeah, I think the process is, you work with Mr. Kitchen.
Yep.
Yeah,
They
so,
submit an application.
yeah,
Yep.
but thank you. It's nice that you might have some folks that would do as good a job as you've done. You've done a great job. Thank you. We appreciate it. Also, Travis, thank you very much. This is a complex setup tonight. And is it Mike? I can't see who's up there.
Mike's up there.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks to everybody. I can't see everybody that's up there. Thanks, we are so grateful to you. You make us kind of sound good and look good, maybe. And then to remote in folks was really great, so thank you so much. And then, Joanne, thank you. We're not going to say goodbye yet, but start to think about how you're going to enjoy your retirement. You deserve it for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's it. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, any comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll take a voice vote. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We will see you in April after spring break. Everybody be safe and enjoy.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.